Hello, BookTube, and welcome to Poetry Monday. Beautiful sunny day, a beautiful sunny, mild Monday. The Bean and I have spent a good deal of time outside, me walking around enjoying myself, her screaming at people to pet her, because you don't get to unpack your car or bring in your groceries or check for the mail or work in your garden. No, no, no. You might think it's a free country and that you get to do those things, but it's Frida-land, and you're living here, but only at her sufferance. So if you're doing all of those things, you have to stop doing them in order to pet herself. And she will let you know that by screaming at you until you do. Yes, I'm talking about you, baby. uh, but there's certainly time for a poem. I've got a wonderful sing-songy poem to read to you today. I'm not going to sing it to you, but you could when you listen to it, you'll easily be able to see that you could, and that is the appeal. We are once again going to the Oxford Book of English Verse, the Quiller Couch edition. This is revised and enlarged by the author. This wasn't done by someone else. This was done decades after he hit it big with the Oxford Book of English Verse. It has nothing on the back. It had a kind of a boring cover. I put a countryside scene on there and just left his name. I've been enjoying, this was just $1. I found it at the Brattle Bookshop, but I'm very glad that I added it to my admittedly meager poetry collection. I once again have the Be a Reader bookmark there. And this is called Celia's Homecoming. And it is by Agnes Mary Frances Duclos. And in parentheses for the author's name, it has Robinson / Darmstetter. Because the author was twice married, and so she's got a slew of names. The Duclos name was the latter of her marriages, but she was a translator, an editor, a book critic, lots and lots of occasional prose written about books, and also a novelist. I think she wrote one novel, and she's also a poet. She was also a poet and a friend and occasional ATM for the pre-Raphaelites. They would spend time at her house. She was almost always largely well off, so if they needed, 10 pounds here or 15 pounds there, and I myself believe that led, as it so often does, both in her period and in all the periods, to the artistic friends of the benefactress praising the benefactor's work in excess of what that work can bear. I think there's certainly a great but vicious comic novel to be written about this poet, but also a sympathetic one too. I think that, like so many poets that we've been dealing with lately, she's now completely forgotten. And I believe, I could be wrong, let me know if I am, but I believe there's never been a biography at all. So once again, there are probably an archive of papers sitting around somewhere with no one consulting them at all. And if that's true, if there's been no biography in 150, 180 years, then probably there's a large amount of original stuff that just needs a little legwork to discover that no one ever has. But Agnes Mary Frances Duclos wrote a lot of poems, and we're going to read one of hers called Celia's Homecoming. Maidens, kilt your skirts and go down the stormy garden ways. Pluck the last sweet pinks that blow. Gather roses, gather bays. Since our Celia comes today, that has been so long away. Crowd her chamber with your sweets. Not a flower but grows for her. Make her bed with linen sheets that have lain in lavender. Light a fire before she come, lest she find us chill at home. Ah, what joy when Celia stands by the leaping blaze at last, stooping low to warm her hands, all benumbed with the blast, while we hide her cloak away to assure us she shall stay. Cider bring and cowslip wine, fruits and flavors from the east, pears and pippins too, and fine saffron loaves to make a feast, china dishes, silver cups, for the board where Celia sups. Then, when all the feasting's done, she shall draw us round the blaze, laugh and tell us every one of her far triumphant days. Celia, out of doors a star, but by the hearth a holier lar. A lovely thing, a lovely sing-songy thing. This author was famous for her lyrics. This is a perfect example of that. The only misstep is that final word. And she had no way of knowing that, No way to guess that. And the reason why is that Latin education, broader education just in general, decreased. It has been decreasing in quality and extent for the whole of the time between her time and our time. The lar mentioned at the end, LAR, is capitalized. We're told that out of doors, Celia is a star. She has wandered the world. She's come home to tell her stories to her joyous friends, who are making a wonderful homecoming for her. Out of doors, she's a star, but by the hearth, she's a holier lar, capital L-A-R. And that is a reference to ancient Roman domestic mythology. The lares and penates were household gods. You had little shrines to them right inside your main room. You would often have little shrines to them in your makeshift little bedroom, and you knew their nature. And the lares and penates of your house watched over your house. They were the familiars of your house. They were the spirits that were yours in your home. They watched over your house. They tended to watch over your extended clan. And at the time that Agnes Mary Frances Duclaw wrote this poem, everyone knew that. Everyone knew the reference in poetry to lares and penates, and no one does anymore. So when she mentions by the hearth a holier lar, okay, it's good because it rhymes with star, but it yanks the modern reader out of the poem completely. Not that this is ever anthologized anymore, but it yanks the modern reader out of the poem completely because they have no idea what that is. And the Quiller Couch never even thought to annotate it, because in his day, people did. You would read that and you would know what was meant, but not anymore, unfortunately. And that I won't say it dates the poem, because the poem is still metrically lovely. It dates the poem only in another way, in that it dates it to a more literate era. And that is true of a lot of what she wrote, and I believe, if I remember correctly, I have only read one novel by this author. If she's written more, I don't know about them. But the novel that I read also has lots and lots of dateable stuff like that, references tossed off here and there, allusions tossed off here and there that don't survive, unfortunately. Not her fault. We have criticized poets in these daily poetry readings for decisions they make that are bad decisions. This is not one of those. She had no way of knowing. And I don't know. That is our poem for today, Celia's Homecoming. Lovely sing-songy thing. And I don't know whether or not I will stick with this anthology for tomorrow. I'm feeling a little bit guilty. I'm loving this. I'm really glad that I got this volume, but I'm feeling a little guilty that I'm neglecting my other anthologies. We should maybe be bouncing around a bit, maybe even return to the hated and despised FSG Poetry Anthology, give it a chance to earn back its good name. The last few that we read from that weren't exactly hits with the household, but maybe we'll go back to that this week. I don't know. I kind of want to stick around in this volume. I've already got my dollar's worth out of it, but I kind of want to stick around with it a little. We'll see. We'll see. I'll pick another poem for you tomorrow, and we'll decide. I'll decide then. In the meantime, I think somebody wants to go for a walk. Yes, do you want to go for a walk? Huh? Maybe not. Maybe not. She will once we're going. I'm going to wrap this up for now, though, and I'll see you all later. Thank you, BookTube.